Hello everyone, welcome to Sadurdays. Sorry this one took so long to make, but I think you'll find it was worth the wait. This one was done on the Mah-Dry-Bread show at one time, but he said it was completely unsalvageable, so I said challenge accepted. And so as a result, here what we have is Jessica by Sadurdays. This is where I fixed up some of the problems. He said that the problems were things like, okay, this person's clearly insane because no one else can see his stuff. I fixed that. I took out any references to multiple personalities. I took out any other things that were pointed out as flaws. So let's see if I was able to salvage this particular story. Without further ado, here we go. When I was about 6, my dad bought me my first ever games console. A yellow Game Boy Color console with a copy of Pokemon Yellow. I was overjoyed. I'd been a hardcore Pokemon fan ever since I started watching the TV shows with my brother and some friends. And every time I'd start trying to reenact some Pokemon, due to my young age and naive nature, I didn't know it was just a kid's show in a game. My brother was with me in his own colorless Game Boy, the see-through one that shows you all the funky machinery inside of it. Had a copy of Pokemon Blue. I would have gotten Red, but they were out of stock. My brother began his game along with me in the car on the way to my grandmother's house. We were both instantly hooked. I fell in love with Pikachu immediately, and my mind being naive at a young age made me call it a weird name. Thinking of a girl I knew who had recently moved, a very close friend of ours, I named my Pikachu Jessica as a tribute to her. I got to Pewter City and I had a Butterfree and Pidgey already, similar to Ash in the cartoon. I had to turn it off and begged Dad to buy me new batteries to keep playing, but it was safe to say I was hooked. After a time, my team grew more robust. It changed, expanded itself, and replaced Butterfree and Pidgeotto with Sandslash and Gororo, a Dragonite traded to me for my brother. Besides the two of them, I also added in the Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur you get during the game. However, one Pokemon never changed throughout the game. Jessica. She remained on my team throughout the game. I didn't mind she was a little weaker than my other Pokemon because she wasn't evolved. She held a special place in my heart. Somehow, no matter how many times my brother tried convincing me to grow her into a Raichu, which was impossible in my game, by trading her to him to let him do it, I never did. I liked Jessica the way she was and kept training her along with my other Pokemon, hearing the cute Pika as she went into battle and the little animations when I spoke to her. In fact, she was the first Pokemon on my team to reach level 100, my first ever top-level Pokemon. The first I'd ever gotten. My dad had told me I was a little too into the game, but I saw differently. I saw Jessica as more than just pixels and bytes in a video game. I saw her as a close friend, a companion, and someone who would cheer me up when I was down with her Pika Pika every time I pressed the A button on her. In a sense, I began to love Jessica like a friend, as weird as it sounded. Soon, Pokemon Gold and Silver came out. I traded my yellow team to my Pokemon Silver version, and trained on it instead, even getting to level 100. Jessica remained at the head of my party, along with my yellow team and the new Pokemon Silver team. I remember watching the anime in Johto and Ash saying that he valued all of his Pokemon and treated them like family. I appreciated my Pokemon in the same way, and Jessica felt like a little sister I never had. My brother had a tendency to just restart the game when he got bored. I even got Pokemon Red to try and match him, and we even raced together. He and I battled occasionally, and he often won, but he could never match up to my Pokemon Yellow team. However, one day, one of our younger friends came around and messed with my game without knowing. He didn't erase it, but he accidentally evolved Jessica into a Raichu. Since it was on my new Crystal version, she couldn't refuse like she did in Yellow. I felt gutted and a little sad that someone of my past had died. I traded my team back to Yellow and began to fight some Pokemon to relive the nostalgic moments. My love for it is back. Although Jessica wasn't following me around anymore, I still treated her like the Pikachu I always had. I even spoke to my game a few times. Once or twice I thought she responded to me. If I felt happy, the Raichu's cry was typical and challenging. If I felt sad, it felt slowed down and a little saddened. It might have just been me, but oh well. When Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire came out, I was distraught that I couldn't trade Gen 1 and 2 Pokemon to them. I felt despondent and finally put down my Pokemon Yellow to pick up a copy of Pokemon Ruby. So what if it was an American on a British Game Boy Advance? I began to play and was instantly hooked. I made my new team, but I went back to my old games, and every now and then Jessica still made me come back to Yellow. And her Pikachu on the front page sprite made me always happy to see her again. Unfortunately, my life outside the video games was becoming less fortunate. My mother was getting sick and slowly dying of cancer. The doctors tried everything they could and fought to keep her alive, but everyone knew the end was coming, except me. I was so naive that I never understood half of what was going on. Sure, I knew Mom was ill, but then the inevitable happened, and then it finally smacked me in the face. I closed myself to reality, playing games and forcing everyone away from me. My thoughts were so misguided and far-fetched, my mind was distorted, and I was doing incredibly badly on my games, even if I tried to use them as a failsafe. Ruby was no fun anymore, and most of my other games were just plain rubbish. Smash Bros. Melee kept me entertained for a while, but soon even that got dull. The only thing left for me now was Yellow. Somehow as a failsafe, Jessica and Yellow actually worked. She always seemed to cheer me up even as a Raichu, and her harrowing battle cry made me keep going forward. I met a girl online and began to fall in love with her. She helped me through the hard times and was also an excellent Pokemon fan. I got Pearl soon after and began to play that, getting hints and tips from this new friend who will be known as S. To protect her identity, and making my new team, buying Pokemon Battle Revolution soon after, and battling her on it occasionally. Everything was getting back together until one fateful event. One event that would, to me, unknowingly set off a whole chain reaction. I'd come home from school incredibly angry. People at school had been bullying me, and a friend had turned on me and seriously upset me. In a blind rage, I had stormed into my room and began to throw things around. My bag, books, drawers, anything that wasn't secure. Eventually I calmed down and began to tidy up. Removing stuff from a pile I'd made of heavy objects thrown when I heard an odd crunching and cracking noise. Digging everything away, I found something that made my anger dissipate into nothing. There, crushed at the bottom of the pile, was the yellow cartridge for a Game Boy Color game. I only had one yellow color game, and that was the game I started with, Yellow. I cried. I think I really cried for quite some time, just holding the smashed bits of my game to my chest. No more nostalgic battles with the Elite Four, no more battles with my rival, no more Jessica. Pikachu to Raichu I had grown to love as a good friend and almost as a sister. I felt terrible and guilty, but even still I had other Pokemon games. I had Pearl with a fantastic team on it, and soon I was going to get Platinum. Would I really miss a Pokemon game that was about 7 or 8 years old? I wish I'd paid more attention. I was far too blind and naive. I began to play Pearl more frequently, challenging S to battles as well as my friends. I moved to a new school and got Platinum, but depression kept coming back to haunt me. My brother was also suffering from depression after our mother's death. Neither of us showed much hope. Well, I was stable thanks to S, who had now become my girlfriend. But my brother was worse off. My brother wasn't even going to school anymore. He'd lost interest in Pokemon and gone to other fandoms, but I stayed loyal. I still am to this very day the #1 fan in my school. However, whenever I played my Pokemon game, something lingered at the back of my mind. Something I'd forgotten, something that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Whatever it was, I seemed to get this feeling whenever I saw a member of the Chew family in the anime or in the games. It was odd and a little creepy. A year and a half later, approximately 6 months ago from today, another tragedy struck. My brother, who had been sinking lower and lower into depression, died in his flat suddenly. Nobody told me anything about what had happened, but it was enough. My depression came back like a storm and smacked me. A few days later, I was due to go back to school. I was rummaging through old things that would bring back memories of my brother. Digging in a box, I found a cracked object. Pulling it out, I was surprised to see it was my old Pokemon Yellow cartridge. A chunk of it was missing from the front, and the nuts and bolts inside were loose. They tipped all over the bottom of the box. I took all of them and attempted to find the missing piece of the cover, but to no avail. Finally giving up, I placed it back in the box and put it away. As I did, a name flashed into my mind that made me pause. Jessica. Where had I heard that name before? I couldn't remember. I stuffed it back under my computer desk and left for school. Things weren't going very well after my brother's death. I was constantly bursting out into fits of tears with minor provocation when stressed out in school, and all but a couple friends left me. Pokemon Heart Gold, my most recent game along with S and my 2 friends known to you as P and R. were the only things keeping me sane. Soon enough, P suggested I get new Pokemon games, Black and White. I decided to get Black because I liked the look of the White Dragon Reshiram. He said he would get White, and we would race to see who could beat the game first, just like my brother and me. Soon the game came and we went instantly to playing it. Within 3 days I was already with 7 badges and an entire team. My love of Pokemon would never die. P was left in the dust with only 4 badges. Finally beating the game and getting the transfer machine, I borrowed P's DS and began to scroll through some Pokemon to trade for my Heart Gold. I wanted to place Lightning, my Zebra Striker, and Wildfire, my Simisear, because they were far too weak. Looking through, I came across a Pikachu I'd gotten from the Yellow Force Pokewalker run. It was female and had a modest nature, knew Surf, Volt Tackle, and 2 other moves I can't remember. Perfect. As a tradition of mine, I always name my Pokemon. This helps me put characteristics to them, and I'd done so ever since I could remember. My Heart Gold file was loaded, and I took the Pikachu to the name raider. Pikachu seemed like the only one really worthy of being on my team. I'd already decided to replace Simisear with another Unova Pokemon. As I named her, I got lost in thought, and before I knew it, I'd entered a name and pressed enter. As I returned to focus from being lost within my head, I realized what I had done. Figuring I must have entered some gibberish in my state of mind, I rolled my eyes and went to look at the probably silly name I'd made. Congratulations, from now on this Pokemon will be known as Jessica. Jessica. My eyes widened as I recognized the name from somewhere. Where, I didn't remember, but it seemed to fit. Everything from there went smoothly. We decided to stick with the name and sent Jessica to my Black version, played the weird capture game. I got my Pokemon to Black version. Jessica was shifted to the front of my party and I began to train her. Things were going as planned. The Lucky Egg and XP point up power I was using for my Seagear was working great. I changed her moveset to be from more special oriented. She had a modest nature and continued training. Things started getting strange about 30 minutes after she was in game. I had started training Jessica without an EXP boost and I had just gotten her to level 50. Level 50 was the level I was planning to evolve her into a Raichu. I pressed A twice to get rid of the stats and then a third time to get rid of the winning battle message. However, rather than the screen going back to normal, it stayed black for a few seconds until I was booted back to my Nintendo DS home screen, as if it no longer recognized the game was inside the console. I then noticed a notification, and when I checked it, there was some free DLC for Pokemon Black. Thinking how cool it was, I eagerly downloaded it, wondering what it might do. It was called Pokemon Nostalgia Add-on. The description read, "Miss the days when your Pokemon followed behind you like in Pokemon Yellow? Miss it no more." Curious to see what it would do, I booted up Pokemon Black again when I continued my game. I noticed Jessica was outside of her Pokeball and behind me. It brought back memories I'd since repressed, but the magic was back. Curious to see if I could still evolve her, I went to my pack and took the Thunderstone, going to click on Jessica. However, rather the page being replaced by Jessica evolving, a text box appeared. This time the text was moving at average speed. Jessica's refusing to take the stone. Refusing? I was confused. A Pokemon had never done that to me except once. It was probably the DLC due to the oddly specific description, saved because the Pokewalker was a thing, so maybe it was the right time to release it. Sighing, I closed the bag and began to walk around a bit more, training again. Jessica raised a few more levels until she was level 60, and then I tried with the Thunderstone. Similarly, Jessica refused, but this time as I closed the bag, another message appeared. Black text box, slow, white writing like before. "You cannot evolve me." It had to be the DLC. I might not have been mentally stable, but I wasn't going to humor the idea that the game was somehow sentient or something impossible. I saved my game and then checked Jessica's stats. On the status screen, her stats seemed normal. Level 60, modest nature, holding a Lucky Egg. Female. But something was different. It took me a few seconds to notice what it was. The Pokemon sprite usually moves on the status screens, but Jessica's was unmoving. Pikachu sat there staring intently at the screen. She didn't look happy like all the other Pikachu did. In fact, she looked angry. Her head was crouched a little and her eyes were narrowed, her cheeks sparking occasionally. She hadn't been like that when I'd first gotten her. Worried that it could be the Pokérus or some form of the equivalent. That's a virus Pokemon get that I guess this supposedly helps them enhance their stats better as they evolve or something. I took her to the Pokemon Century to see if the little message saying you have Pokérus came up. When I spoke to Nurse Joy, she healed my Pokemon and then began to say something else. But what she said wasn't what I expected. Oh my, it seems your Jessica isn't very pleased with you. Did you do something to upset it? You should take better care of your Pokemon. I read the screen over and over, trying to understand what I'd done wrong. Was this a side effect of some glitch involving Pikachus and Thunderstorms exclusive to the DLC? Alarm bells were going off in my head, but I wanted to get Jessica to higher level to battle the champion and my friend, and so began to train again. When she reached level 65, I checked back on her sprite. Jessica's sprite had gone back to normal, but something was different. Whereas the Pikachu sprite usually bounced, Jessica did not. She seemed to be looking at me, her eyes locking onto mine quietly, and detailed brown eyes filled with emotion I never knew could be seen in the game. Hatred, anger, resentment, sorrow. These were not happy eyes. As I closed her status page, another message flashed up. You're a user, a cruel, heartless user. User? I stared back at the screen. Now I knew something was wrong. I quickly grabbed my DS and hurried upstairs to my school to find P&R, both in the upstairs lounge. I showed them the game and they looked at it and asked what had happened as they saw it too, and wondered how they could download whatever it was I had the special event. That had the special event. I told them to listen to me, and this was not some event. Something I downloaded had drastically altered my file that could very well ruin the game. Dismissing my concerns as an overreaction since no one had ever been hacked through their DS despite being the first handheld Nintendo console to connect to the internet, I resigned myself to possibly thinking that, especially since one of the major plot points was the ethical question of whether it was right to battle Pokemon. I headed downstairs to my room, continuing to train. As soon as I opened my DS back up, words were on the bottom of the screen and slightly larger than normal text box. However, these words were worrying since it was still on the black text box. But the words themselves were blood red and in a different style of writing, much more blocky and sharp than the rounded edges of the newer paper. You cannot escape who you are. You acquire the team you want, make us battle one another, then you discard us. We will never die. We cannot die. Jessica's sprite appeared on the screen, but it was different again. Instead of a happy, bouncy Pikachu, her arms were folded and her ears were drooping downwards. Her eyes narrowed and her body had turned so it was now facing the screen directly. It was then that I really understood. She wasn't talking to the character at all. She was talking to me. Jessica? I whispered, staring at her quietly. The Pikachu sprite nodded angrily. Its mouth began to move silently as words appeared on the screen in that same blood-red digital writing. I thought you cared. I thought you really cared, but I realize the truth now. I lingered, memories slowly beginning to hit my head. She couldn't have known anything of my previous history with other games where I had a Pikachu just like her. Still, whatever was in the code I downloaded caused her to be self-aware. That as much as these games try to ingrain the idea that Pokemon are our friends, most players do not see them as anything other than collectibles or digital data. What kind of sick person would go to these lengths to change the game like this? Nothing in any strategy guide says anything about an event like this. There was a silence from the screen before suddenly I heard Pika from my speakers. I looked at the screen to see she'd turned her back on me and begun to walk away. I shook my head frantically, pressing the A button to try and do something, but all I got was a swish of her lightning bolt tail as she faded out. The screen turned to normal. In black, the character was facing the Pikachu sprite at the top of some steps. I guessed that Jessica and the little Pikachu block looked at black before another text box appeared. At the top of Celestial Tower, I will wait for you. With that, the screen flashed back and then back to normal. Things were wrong, though. The music had stopped playing and black seemed to be moving slightly slower than expected. When I checked my party Pokemon, the first thing I noticed was that Jessica was no longer a member of my party. The first space was replaced by my starter Wish, my Samurott. Looking over my Pokemon, I noticed some other things. Their cries were not sounding, and their sprites were frozen. The pixels themselves were also only done in specific colors. Yellow, red, blue, and whatnot, as well as done in large blocky pixels, just like Pokemon Yellow sprites. Everything suddenly hit me. Jessica, my old team, the nostalgia, and finally what happened to the cartridge. Whoever made the content I downloaded clearly did their homework on what they aimed to convey, and it was unsettling. Without another word in real life or in game, I used my trusty Sigalith hypnode to fly to Mystralian City and headed north towards Celestial Tower. The music still refused to play, but it was in too much torment with myself to care. My tears ran down my face as I entered the tower of deceased Pokemon Tower. As I entered, the atmosphere was different from the outside. The room was darker than usual, and there wasn't anybody there. There was a forlorn silence, but faintly music was playing. I began to ascend the spiral staircase, and the music got louder with every floor I raised. Each floor was how it should be, but much darker. No trainers or wild Pokemon. The graves are painted black. I finally reached the top and surprisingly found everybody there. All of the trainers from the tower, the gym leaders, Elite Four, Bell, Sharon, and Alder. They were all here, looking towards the main steps to the bell at the top of the tower. As I approached them, people stopped me. They said what shocked me and made my throat dry out even more, and fresh tears well up in my eyes. Bill said, "Cameron, how could you do such a thing?" Sharon said, "They looked up to you. How could you betray me?" Alder said, "This is unforgivable, but maybe she will." And said, "You said that you wanted people in Pokemon to live in peace, then why did you?" As I rose the final steps, Bell, Sharon, and Alder followed, blocking the way back out. I went forward and stopped. There, standing in front of the bell, was undeniably a Pikachu sprite. Pikachu rang the bell, the sounds sounding eerie with the music, which I now recognize to be the 8-bit Lavender Town theme from Pokemon Yellow. Music stopped. Another text bubble appeared in black and white writing. "You came, Cameron." I did. I whispered quietly to the screen, sniffling as I stared at it. The giant Pikachu sprite turned around and took a few steps towards black, only stopping 1 or 2 spaces away. "I called you here because this is supposedly where Pokemon go when they die. We battle, we win, we lose, we get stronger. If we are released, we eventually end up here." The sprite took the final steps toward black, and the screen fuzzled out, the more enormous spirit replacing most of the screen, like when N sometimes talked. What I saw, however, almost made me sick. It was a Pikachu, but no Pikachu I'd ever seen. The creature's ears were flattened to its skull, a huge gash leading from one ear to the other across the forehead. Blood-stained fur was shown all the way down its face, past its sorrowful eyes and scratched cheeks. Its arms hung limply by its sides, and its tail drooped limply over its shoulder. The lightning bolt at the tip had a large chunk ripped out of it. Then Pikachu's mouth had dried blood around the lips and some dribbling from the corner of its mouth, but that was the central part of the Pikachu that terrified me. Right where the chest was, Pikachu's abdomen and stomach area too, there was a gaping wound. Inside could be seen intestines, bones, cracked ribs, and copious amounts of blood dripping from it, covering the white belly fur and staining it red. I could see its heart. With a sickening turn of my stomach, I saw it beating feebly within the shattered rib cage. Panicking, I pressed A repeatedly to try to get the image away from the screen. Instead, a text box appeared, and the writing digital in red, just like the blood coming from the Pikachu. "What's wrong, Cameron? Can't stomach the truth? Your closest friends, our final fate?" "I'm sorry," I screamed suddenly, staring at Pikachu's face. "I'm sorry." With that, I crumpled over my screen and sobbed. "Jessica, I was just playing a game. I never meant to put you and my team through hell. I didn't know I was contributing to a cycle of life and death this way. I didn't mean to download that content that made you see me this way. You're still my Pokemon. You're still my friend. None of this was meant to happen. Just don't hate me. It was all a stupid mistake." I cried for a few solid minutes before finally looking up at the screen. Jessica had gone, and the overwhelmed Pikachu sprite was simply standing there looking at black. Nothing was said for a moment, and I merely stared at the screen. Finally, a text box appeared. "Perhaps you didn't know. Regardless, there's no turning back from what you've done. Sometimes ignorance is bliss." There was another pause before Jessica turned around, staring at black. "Jessica pities you." I felt a wave of uncertainty wash over me as I saw Pikachu sprite walk back over to black. The screen flashed up with a gruesome Pikachu sprite again, but this time the sorrowful eyes were replaced with soft ones, a small weak smile on its face. "If you truly care, if you truly want all to be as it should, you will have to let go." Let go of what? I pondered for a moment until I slapped myself as it was apparent. If my curiosity in downloading the bonus content created this mess, and I'd saved it after the fact, I would have to erase everything on my DS. That means all my past accomplishments go away too. Was I ready to do that? The picture of Jessica on screen nodded and faded out. The overworld returned and Jessica appeared again as a Pikachu sprite. I will help you undo the damage. Suddenly the game booted me back to the home screen, and when I reloaded the game and tried to select and continue, I got a message that read, "The save file has been corrupted." Only one thing I could do now. I had to clean boot my system. All the hours I put in, the achievements I'd done, all to be thrown away simply because I believed my system unhackable. When I set up my new profile, my now clean DS, and made a new game file, things went back to normal, from best I could tell. Regardless, I just didn't have the heart to play and redo it all again, so I turned it off and moved on to other things. I hope you read this and realize it is just a game, and it is what we put into it and make of it. Though it brought me joy while it was good, this was perhaps a sign it was time to find other things to enjoy in life and focus on the future, not be stuck in nostalgia. I haven't played a Pokemon game since, not out of fear or disgust, I outgrew it. And I figured maybe I'd keep the cartridges if any future kids of mine want to play. That said, I'll definitely warn them not to download DLC for games if they don't know who published it. I don't want to ruin the magic for them like it did for me. I found myself a good job and a girlfriend since giving up the game and seeking further professional help. While tragedy drew me to the escape of gaming, one eventually has to confront what it is if one wants to progress in life. That is the lesson I wish to leave with you. And that was the revamped Jessica. Final thoughts? Well, with the new revisions, things were pretty good. But I think I might have messed a few things up that were fairly minor but didn't affect the plot much. Like, okay, so he was a fan to this day, but then he outgrew it. And then, secondarily, did his friends actually leave him? The ones that he had made over this time? I can't remember, but you can be the judge of that. Regardless, it's still a vast improvement on what it was before. At the very least, by having it be a downloadable content hack, there's some believability that maybe somebody could have designed something like this, even if it might have otherwise been malware. And at the very least, it's something that someone could make an actual ROM hack of online if they wanted to, based on what I put in there. I mean, someone actually made a ROM hack known as Pokemon Rocket Edition, so if they could make something like that, I don't see why they couldn't make Pokemon Black Yellow or something, or whatever, you know. Anyway, that has been Sadurdays, and this has been the Forsaken Scribe. Thank you for watching. I hope you were able to get something out of this, whether it's entertainment, were able to get in touch with your emotions, or something. Anyway, until next time, goodbye.